It is Tuesday evening at 9:30. It has been, admittedly, a very frustrating last 24 hours for myself. I think for the weather enterprise as a whole with this storm. This was, it feels like every year Mother Nature throws a couple of curveballs our way, and this one was definitely one of those. I will not be ashamed to admit here. I'm sitting at our house. We're just off of the lake, and to the sound of sleet pellets, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, sleet is the kiss of death with a snow map, and you knew in that moment it was like, all right, we're going to have some trouble around here. I think a lot of our snow totals are not going to end up panning out. Now, for some of you, you got plenty. Some of you ended up getting that foot of snow, even into Monroe County, especially northwest Monroe County. But the reality is, Rochester did not. A lot of areas south of the Thruway most definitely did not. We did not forecast a foot of snow south of the Thruway, but we forecasted more than what you got, and that sleet really did a number on that. So appreciate all of you watching here tonight. We're going to get to your forecast as we move forward, but I do want to take a minute or two and kind of just break down what happened with this overnight. I did a little post on rochesterfirst.com about this, but as much as it stinks when we get a forecast wrong, and Lord knows it does happen. I can give you a long time over my career where you get some swing and a misses. So they do happen. It stinks. But it's even worse if you don't go back and figure out why you ended up getting it wrong, so that you can then implement that for future times, because inevitably it's going to end up happening again. And now you are able to recognize, hey, could we have seen something that the models were not seeing that we can now use for a later storm and be able to make that more accurate? So that's what we've been spending a lot of our day here doing. And let me show you kind of what we've got with this. So we'll break down basically where the models thought and where we had thought too this storm was going to track. So what I've plotted here is the center of where low pressure was going to be at the surface. And these lows have a cold front, they have a warm front. And in a wintry weather situation, you often have a boundary where warmer air aloft will turn snow into sleet or freezing rain. Now, we had all of that. The snapshot that you've got on your screen right now, this is loosely how we thought this was going to look overnight. That low was going to end up tracking south of Rochester and then passing off to our southeast. Now, we've got a warm front on there, and the important thing with this warm front, this is going to fling a tongue of warmer air aloft above that very cold air at the surface. So when that happens, you end up getting the snowflakes that are falling. They fall into that warm layer where, kind of like a microwave, it's going to end up melting. Snowflakes melt, they turn to raindrops, and then depending on how deep the cold air is underneath it, that either becomes freezing rain or it refreezes into sleet. Why is that so important? Well, the big one here from an accumulation standpoint is this. Snowflakes that are fluffy and airy accumulate very efficiently. Sleet pellets are much more concentrated, smaller, and don't have a lot of air space in between them. So what could be 10 inches of snow, if it falls as all sleet, you might only get 2 or 2.5 inches of sleet. So sleet is the bane of a forecaster's existence when you're trying to build a snow map, and we figured this was going to be an issue primarily south of I-90. Now that's not what happened. Here's what happened. Actual track of this ended up being, I'd say, a good 20 miles off to the west. And you notice what that did. So the same setup, I didn't move the contours or the colors on this at all. All I did was slide the low 20 miles to the left. And in doing so, all of a sudden now, we flung that warmer air aloft, just like that, straight into Rochester. And we ended up with several hours of sleet and freezing rain. This is how you bust a snow map in Rochester. This is also how you are right on the money with a snow map just maybe 10 miles down the road. And we've had multiple reports in northwest Monroe County of about a foot of snow. Places like Hilton coming in with a foot of snow. Orleans County got about a foot of snow. You get into Niagara County, got about a foot of snow. All of that was great. We nailed that part of the forecast. Where we failed, though, was where to draw that line of where that warm air aloft would get in there and sleet would mix in. And that line happened to be a failure right over the biggest spot of our viewing area, right over Rochester. So that was our failure in that regard. Where this went wrong for us, I think a lot of things you ended up getting right. It just goes back to a simple We were off by 20 miles on the track of that low. And unfortunately, this is where I'm most frustrated about this. I saw that happening yesterday. And a lot of meteorologists around here saw that happening. And we didn't react fast enough to it. We kind of lagged behind with that. So I think in hindsight, if I could go back and do it all over again, when we started noting that trend that the storm was tracking a bit farther off to the west, I think I would have latched on to that sooner, and that would have allowed you to get more of a heads up. And we eventually got there late last night. But, you know, too many people went to bed still thinking they had a lot more snow than what was going to end up happening. And some of that writing was on the wall. So that was kind of our failure out of that. So we don't like being wrong. Our business exists on the premise of accuracy. The weather enterprise cannot continue to sustain itself if your business model is built on being right. So, you know, I know it's very easy to look at this and say, oh, you guys are just overhyping and you do it for ratings and you do it for this. You know, I always have to laugh at myself, and I have to step back too and realize how things might look. You know, I'm obviously fully enveloped in this to be able to know that is not how we are operating here. But it's easy to be able to look at that sometimes and go, oh, they're just doing it to sell things. We're not going to exist very long if every time we make a forecast we end up you know, being off by 5 inches of snow. That will not end well for us. So not a real great business model to be doing intentionally. Current temperatures right now, well, they're cold. We are in the teens at this hour in Rochester. Still breezy. Drop that wind chill down to about 4. Look at Wellsville coming in at 6 below 0. Not only that, these are the live cameras at this hour. This is the Charlotte Lighthouse. Looking northward, out over the Genesee, you've got Ontario Beach Park, just off screen there on the left side. Got a couple of good restaurants down there, too. One of my favorite sushi places is down there, California Rollin'. I like them. And I believe there's a Bill Gray's in that same building, too. Got a lot of snow that's falling there, too. Downtown Rochester, same deal. Looks like we're getting a light coating on the roadways again. This is the lake effect portion of this system. Which will only get to some of you. All of you are going to end up being super duper cold early tomorrow morning. Wind chills on Wednesday dropping below 0. Some of the warmest numbers here tomorrow morning. Not coincidental, where there's going to be some lake effect snow lingering because the skies will not be clear. Clear skies promote colder air this time of year. Now here's what we got on radar. This is starting to get busy, so you are getting the beginning phase here of the alignment of some of the lake effect snow. We've had a pretty stout band of moderate to heavy snow even locally, south of Medina. That'll be on the south side of Orleans County, near the county line. As you jump south there, you get into Batavia, just on the north side of town toward Byron. The bigger band, and we got a pretty decent one of these right now. That's this guy right in here. So that sets up shop right along the lakeshore, it looks like, from northern Orleans into northern Monroe. Places like Hilton, after your foot of snow, isn't this the irony in all of this? Hilton may end up with more snow than we had originally predicted. I think we had you in 12 plus, so technically I think that will still end up verifying, but there might be more plus on top of that. That band may try to make a little more southward progress there, closer toward the 104 corridor. Right now it's just a few flurries, so light snow, Charlotte, Irondequoit, Webster as well, but you'll note that heavier band is lurking just offshore of you there in the Webster area, and then it kind of pushes its way in towards Sodus Bay, and then pushing into Wolcott as well. That's what we got here for, I'd say, roughly the next 24 hours tops. That'll be all the snow that we've got in town heading into tomorrow morning. Highly localized lake snow bands, and there will be some minor accumulation out of that. Otherwise, the temperatures drop into the single digits. We'll probably get to about 20, maybe low 20s for a high tomorrow. Wednesday is a quiet day. Additional accumulations on top of what we've already gotten. You know, could there be some 1 to 3s in northern Monroe? Yeah, it's possible. 1 to 3 seems most likely. You know, in these setups, somebody always sneaks in with more than that. The highest propensity for that would likely be that famed 104 corridor, primarily into Wayne. Can we get in on our next storm system? We got another one coming. And, you know, some interesting trends here with this one. This will be Thursday, Friday, early Saturday. The models today are coming in a little more suppressed with this. Suppressed is a word that we use that usually means Maybe the system's not quite as wound up as they had initially suggested, so a little flatter, and the low may pass a bit farther off to the southeast. So the end result with that would be we'll end up getting some widespread snow that everybody gets into Thursday into early Friday. So there would be some widespread, I would call that relatively minor accumulation out of that. Low gets on out, winds then turn back to the northwest. Remember, we still have Lake Ontario that's involved in these. And the Euro especially is still pretty aggressive with the notion of lake effect snow, even getting into the day on Saturday. And that may end up being, if we end up getting some more moderate snow totals out of this, it will probably come from the spots where lake effect really does start getting involved. Right now, I would not say I'm feeling overly aggressive in the widespread part of this, just given the track of where this thing is gone now. It just doesn't look all that wild and crazy. But you combine that with maybe some lake effect on the backside, that could get you into some shovelable, maybe even plowable totals locally. And that'll be something we obviously watch very closely with some of our higher resolution stuff that comes online. We'll start getting a first look at that by tomorrow. Most of our high-res stuff is usually about 48 to 72 hours. That's how far out that stuff goes. So that'll be the next one from there. I got to tell you that the pattern looking forward doesn't look all that Arctic anymore. I think we're going to kind of slowly ease our way out of this. Might even break freezing for a little bit, getting into the early part of next week. Monday looks like the first one we get above that 32-degree mark. Took a peek at some of the super long-range stuff, too, getting out 8 to 14 days, which takes us all the way into the start of March. Can you believe that? It does look like it wants to lean a bit milder around here. So could this be the turning point as we start getting closer towards spring? We shall see. But for at least the next few days, it is all about the cold and all about the wintry stuff. So there you go. There's our update. Back with you at 11 o'clock here tonight. As always, I thank you for joining us on these Facebook Lives. We hope to see you at 11.